Well, how do you know that live theater is back in person? I think all you need to do is tune into the show, because in the last 3 weeks, I think we've had over a half a dozen theater companies, local theater companies, come into this studio and share their fantastic productions. And my next guest is doing just that as well. Darrah Teitel joins me. She is the playwright of the latest playing at the Great Canadian Theatre Company. It's called Forever Young, a Ghetto Story. Welcome, Darrah. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
We were just talking off camera, just saying how excited you are to be back in person, because you as a playwright, you tried to do it virtually, and it's just not the same, is it?
No, it's more boring.
Yeah.
And there's a reason that we put on plays, right? We're searching for this live experience, and there's a reason that I work in the theater and not on film or television.
Right.
I want the experience of bringing people together, and the awkwardness and the excitement and the risk of seeing people in front of you, and you can't duplicate that on Zoom.
And that was another play that you had written that we were talking about, right?
That was my last show.
Let's talk about your background as a playwright. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I've been a writer since before I can remember.
Really, eh?
I had my first play produced because I won a children's playwriting contest, and it was produced at the Young People's Theatre when I was 11. And
That's
it was
amazing.
Thrilling, as you can imagine, and I've been doing it ever since. So, it's actually, it feels like a very long career, but
for a young person, like especially starting at 11 years, you're pretty young. You're not older than me, so you're young. Darrah, tell us about this latest production. How would you describe the story?
So this play is called Forever Young. It is about the astonishingly young radical socialists that begat the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, that organized the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And it's a Holocaust play. It's a piece of Holocaust fiction. It's the second Holocaust play I've ever written.
Okay.
But it is very much written for today, through my eyes, through my lens, and it exists in sort of two times in space, both in 2022 and in 1942-43 Poland. So I don't know what else to say about it.
Well, I was going to say, what are some of the common, themes you mentioned? It's a play written for today.
Yeah.
Obviously, you found some common themes in what you see today and what we might have seen back in 1940s. You were saying.
Definitely, I was inspired to write the play in 2018 when. It was the 75th anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, and a few articles were being written. This is a story I had known about my entire life as a Jewish person. Since before I can remember, I'd been told stories of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. It's one of the most important things that have ever happened to modern Jewish history.
I'm just going to stop you there, Darrah, because for people at home that aren't familiar with the story,
sure.
if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it was the Holocaust, and the Nazis imprisoned more than 500,000 Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto.
Right.
And this was sort of where they were being starved and deprived of medicines and being killed by disease, but also it was a stop before they were being deported to death camps. And so that happened, and the Warsaw Ghetto, these young people, these activists who had themselves come from very radical factions before the war, came together, spent the first few years fighting amongst themselves, and then formed a coalition, a fighting coalition, and mounted the largest and most successful uprising against the Nazis, Jewish uprising against the Nazis. And it's a very heroic story. They fought for longer than the armies of Poland or France fought when they were invaded by the Germans.
Just amazing.
I know,
it's an amazing story.
It is an amazing story, and the part of it that I had never heard was how young they were.
How young are we talking?
Like teenagers, and very young people in their 20s. Astonishingly young, and also this backroom political drama that had gone on between different socialist factions. They were all commies.
Right, yeah.
They were all like on the spectrum of the Jewish left, but they disagreed with each other on these 5 points, and they had to come together in order to address their own survival.
A very serious subject, obviously, just, having this comment, but you've decided to bring some humor into it. Tell me the reason behind that.
Well, I mean, I've never written a play that isn't funny. Okay. That's just my tone.
Okay, you and I are going to get along really, really well. I love this.
It's dark and comic at the same time, and I would sort of argue that that is a very Jewish tone.
Yeah.
And that Yiddish itself, the language that my characters would have spoken, is one of the most sarcastic languages under the sun. And so I grew up in a household of people who were, my grandparents are Yiddish speakers and their children, and that tone is what I'm used to, what I hear in my mind. It influences me when I write anything. And for this play in particular, because the characters would be Yiddish speakers, like that tone of laughing in the face of darkness and defeat seemed appropriate. And it comes from an authentic place. And also, I push against this idea that we need to be serious when approaching serious subject matter. I want to entertain my audience.
It's so refreshing to hear you say it. No, really, because sometimes I think we try to take ourselves too seriously, and we're trying to tell stories, and sometimes it doesn't connect with an audience, right? Because
it's hopeless.
No, really. That's an excellent point. That's a great description of it. What about, sort of the main characters in this? How would you describe the characters in this play?
I mean, they're teenagers, and they're full of flaws, and they're funny, and they're sexy, and they're queer, and they're just trying to make it work, but they are incredibly passionate and super brilliant and so committed and so sure of their own rightness, the way teenagers are.
Right.
They're not perfect at all.
Yeah.
But they do something incredible, and I think that's the real point I'm trying to get across, is that there's a joy and a vibrancy in solidarity and in organizing, and when people come together to do something, to take action together, even in the most horrific circumstances, that is a place of joy.
And it premieres tonight, right?
It does.
Tonight.
I'm so nervous.
You don't come across as nervous.
Oh my God, I am so nervous.
Oh, well, enjoy the experience. I know you're going to be nervous no matter what, but really enjoy the experience coming back to the stage.
Oh, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be
just fabulous. And it's running, by the way, until November the 20th at the Great Canadian Theatre Company. Just an amazing theatre company, great experience. Go for dinner beforehand in the neighborhood and then go see a show. We'll be back after this.